James, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
I'm a longtime Fitbit user. I looked at my stats last night, and I've got 7.5 million steps lifetime and probably about 3,000 miles or something like that.
Okay, that's pretty good.
How's that rank among the Fitbit user base?
Depends on when you started.
Okay.
So.
I started yesterday. So you guys have been around since 2007, and talk a little bit about how you get started and when you got to launch.
Yeah, so my co-founder Eric Friedman and I started Fitbit in early 2007, and really the start of the company was late 2006. I was one of the first people to buy a Nintendo Wii, and I waited at Best Buy at 6 a.m. My wife was a great sport. Took it home, and I was just really amazed by the way Nintendo had combined motion sensing with really amazing software. And for the time, it changed the way people thought about gaming, something that was very active and positive rather than sedentary. So Eric and I thought, how could we capture a lot of this magic and put it into a more portable form? So that was the start of Fitbit in April, May 2007. And we knew nothing about hardware at the time. We were two software engineers. And I guess naivete, we weren't dissuaded by the challenge. And we announced our first product at TechCrunch in September 2008.
Okay, and you were expecting to release it in September 2008?
We told everybody we would be shipping at Christmas, and we did ship at Christmas, but it was Christmas of the following year. So
what happened? Was it distribution challenges or production challenges? Or?
No, just overall hubris and ignorance, all that, about the realities of bringing a hardware product to market. So,
what were the biggest challenges you faced in that time?
Everything, like how do you build a hardware product? So we had to start from scratch. So luckily I knew the principal at New Deal Design, just one of the great industrial design firms in San Francisco. They've done products like the Slingbox, Palm Zyre, et cetera. So he helped us a lot in finding the right connections, manufacturers, engineering consultants, et cetera. So that kind of got us started. But really, it was a lot of just from scratch learning that Eric and I had to do to figure out how to build a hardware company. And we spent a lot of months just living in Asia, particularly Singapore, bringing up production lines.
Now, when we talk about wearables, one of the big things is it's such a personal thing. You want it to fit with your profile. You want it to be part of your image. You started off with a tiny tracker that fits in the pocket. Now you have a wristband.
Yes.
Can you talk about how you made the decision to launch the wristband and whether that's getting at a different market for you?
So when we started in 2007, there was very limited competition. Our key competition that we stated to investors were old school pedometers. So these were pretty large devices, typically unconnected, that you'd clip to your waistband. And reading Amazon reviews, typically I don't like to do a lot of market research, but I just like to read Amazon reviews on pedometers. So I'd read through the 2,000 reviews for this Omron pedometer and saw that a lot of people were dropping pedometers into their pocket. And a lot of women were trying to clip the thing to their bra. And if you ever seen an Omron pedometer, they're pretty huge. So I'm like, well, I don't think that quite works that well. So a key design intent of our first product was, can someone clip it to their bra really easily? And so that drove a lot of the form factor, the use cases, et cetera. Another big use case was, can you drop it into your pocket, coin pocket, et cetera. And that's the important thing about wearables. It's, the use case, how it fits into people's wardrobe, their lifestyle is critically important when you do the design. And the wrist is another thing. Like, what we found is that there's no one size fits all. Some people love to clip it to their bra, drop it in their pocket, wear things on their wrist. And people get incredibly religious about where they wear these things. So our strategy from the very beginning has been, we're pretty agnostic about how things are worn as long as they're very effective in the location that they're worn. So for instance, for the wrist, you have to design your algorithms very differently because the wrist introduces a lot of different motion artifacts than, let's say, on your chest or in your pocket. And there's a lot of edge cases that might break the wrist form factor that doesn't matter for clippable products. So for instance, if you push a baby stroller, You really can't depend on your arms swinging through the air. So that's just one part of the algorithm you try not to do, or if you're on a treadmill desk. So
how do you find out about all these things? Do you talk to physicists, or
no.
do you just like go try these things and see what moves the needle and what doesn't?
A lot of it's just intuition. I mean, we have a big R&D team, PhDs, but a lot of the approach we take is much more statistical rather than physiological. So I think it's easier to have a team of people who are great at math and statistics and try to teach them enough about physiology and about the body than it is the other way around.
Okay. Well, let me play VC for a few minutes here.
Okay.
James, love your product, but isn't everybody just going to use a cell phone for this, or apps that like moves that you launch it, you don't have to have a separate device, you don't have to have separate connectivity? Why are people just going to do that versus having a dedicated device?
So that's the same question that has been asked of us over our last 5 funding rounds. So 2007, that was the question that was asked, 2008, et cetera. I think the key thing, again, goes to wearability. A lot of people are going to find smartphone movement activity trackers good enough or useful enough for what they need to do or what their goals are. We try to go a step beyond that. And in terms of wearability, that's a key aspect. So for people who are serious about their health and fitness, they're not going to have their smartphone on their body all the time. A lot of women don't. Most people, when they go home, usually want to put their smartphone on their desk or their coffee table, et cetera. So wearability is a huge issue. The other thing is sensors right now. So I think what we're going to see in the next few years, and you see a couple products out in the market today, is more and more advanced sensors beyond the sensors that are just, come with your smartphone.
Okay. You've got a hardware product. Hardware you have to build, you have to ship, you have to distribute. That's a lot of work. That's not something VCs like to support.
VCs are probably more amenable today, but when we started, it was a pretty difficult proposition, and usually we had to figure that if we talked to 40 VCs in a given round, that 2/3 would probably fall off immediately because of the hardware issue and the need to build inventory and the capital risk, et cetera. What's great is we always settled on a small group of investors who truly were able to take risk, understand the business that we're in, and it's been great to work with them over the past few years.
Okay. Well, my last VC question.
Okay.
I want to keep making money. I don't want money just up front. How are you going to turn this into a monthly recurring business type model?
I think that's an important question, but we've had a lot of investors and press ask us if we're a hardware company or a software company. And I think the safest answer is to say, oh, we're actually a software company. But I think if you truly believe that, you lose sight of the fact that hardware is actually a really important piece of your business. And I don't like myself or any members of our team to delude themselves in thinking that, that hardware isn't important, that, we might run the risk of taking our eyes off the ball if we feel that way. So again, like you said, hardware is incredibly difficult, and we need to be honest with ourselves. We are a hardware company where a lot of the value is added by software, but we have to focus a lot to deliver the hardware that's really awesome.
Who's using your product today? Is it people who are fitness nuts? Is it people who are overweight trying to become less overweight? What's that market segmentation look like for you?
It's all types. What we don't have are the really super serious athletes, like triathletes, for instance. And actually, that was a big barrier for us in our early fundraising rounds because a lot of VCs also happen to be triathletes.
Is that because your product's not waterproof, or are they just...
No, I mean, the typical thing is I'm a triathlete, and how does this device help me? Well, my answer is it doesn't. So typically, that's where the conversation ended. But we're really for everyday people trying to achieve their health goals, whether it's to become more active, eat better, sleep better. And the age range of our users goes from 20s to 50s, different body types. Most of our users are actually overweight. So yeah,
more so than the overall American population, or?
According to BMI.
Okay.
So probably a little bit healthier than the average American, but that's not a huge, bar.
Not a huge hurdle to cross.
Huge hurdle. So.
How hard is it to get the user interface right on devices that are this tiny?
We spend an incredible amount of time for the actual amount of pixels that are on the device, but we also try not to overthink things. Key part of the Fitbit philosophy behind our device design has been, pretty simple user interface. So we've usually had either one button or 0 buttons, and that was a direct response to, again, our early pedometer competitors, where if you look at Omrons, they typically had 3 to 5 buttons. It was usually difficult to figure out what they all did. So we lost a little bit on functionality, but I think overall the products are a lot more usable.
Okay. One of the things that has come up in the wearable space and with quasi-medical type devices is government regulation. The FDA just issued some guidelines on what's going to be regulated as a medical device and what's not. Does that help your business at all? Are there things that you were looking at doing that now that you have this clarity, you're like, okay, good to have that settled?
Typically, I don't like to talk about regulatory issues in public. Okay. But I think the FDA has a pretty tough job trying to figure out how to keep people safe and how to foster innovation. And probably my only comment about what was recently published is that I still feel it's too ambiguous. Like I read a lot of press about, hey, this clarifies everything, and then I read it and I go, I'm not sure exactly how it clarifies anything, but I'll go with it.
Got it. What do you think some of the big areas of disruption in the wearable space will be?
It'll be interesting to see how smartwatches fare in the whole category. So that's new entrants at the high end. It'll be interesting to see how low energy cores like the M7 and some of the stuff we see on the Moto and HTC devices disrupt the low end of health and fitness. But I think it's going to be a race for more advanced wearables with more sensors that are smaller, lighter, run longer between charges. So I think it's going to be a cool next 2 years.
What would you want in a smartwatch? What would make you put a smartwatch on your wrist?
Something that's not a Galaxy Gear look-alike. That's a little big.
Got it. Who do you think, you've seen some of the big fitness companies get into the space who have incredible amounts of marketing budget and they can, get celebrities on board, endorse their products and so forth. How do you compete against that?
It's really about understanding customer and focus. So we actually outsell all of our existing competitors in the market. So we outsell FuelBand, we outsell Jawbone, and that's just been through, again, understanding our consumer and massive retail distribution as well. We're in over 20,000 stores in 17 countries. So those are the two things that we really focus on, product and sales.
How did you get all that distribution? Because that's not hard or inexpensive.
It's been a 4-year journey at this point. I mean, when we launched the product, we were selling only on Fitbit.com. And, we started off in 2010 with a 4-store pilot at Best Buy. So, our sales team has executed very well over 4 years from growing from 4 stores to 20,000. And again, that's just a function of time and an excellent sales force. I don't think there's any shortcut unless you're a huge company with existing contacts in distribution.
What's been the balance between online and retail, big box for you guys?
Can't really say what the breakdown is, but okay. I think it's really hard to build a big business in this category without the help of channel partners, just because if you think about marketing dollars spent, channel marketing dollars are pretty efficient. If you have a big display like we do at Best Buy, it's a 5x4 display. Not only does it make money on its own selling product, but it's a huge billboard anytime anybody walks by it. So I think to really succeed, you have to have both online and channel distribution.
Now, do you occasionally have your own staff or agents in the stores explaining the product to customers? Or?
No, but key part of good retail sales is making sure that the on-floor staff at Best Buy or Target, et cetera, know your product. And so we do spend a lot of time on training their sales teams.
How do you go about doing that?
It really depends on your level of resources. So you can hire other people to do the training, or you can hire your own team to go out and do training. But that's a common thing that companies with large distribution networks do.
Do you have the Christmas effect with your product where you get a lot of people giving these out as gifts and then they just kind of get excited for the first couple months and then drop off in terms of usage?
We're happy with our retention. I think the early question we got from investors was, is this a giftable product? Because we weren't quite sure.
Is it offensive to people?
Yeah, is it offensive? If I give a Fitbit to my girlfriend or wife, what is it saying? But it's been a very giftable product, and a lot of it has just been due to making the whole category exciting. So I think if you gave one of those old school pedometers as a gift, that might not be welcomed very well. But I think any of the new class of activity trackers, I think they're pretty cool gifts.
Okay. We've got some time for questions from the audience. Over here.
Yeah, we're going to sell it to marketers and advertisers to sell ads against. No, I'm just, no, that's the last thing we would ever do. And part of it is, I used to work at CNET, and I got sick of having to make those trade-offs between product and sales, ad sales. So we're all about the product and user experience. Where we do see the data coming in valuable is, if you can offer deeper analytics to people, better coaching services. I think my general position is, I think that data could be useful, but I don't like to oversell the promise of the data. And I think with just the class of sensors we have today, which is just around acceleration, it's pretty difficult to get anything super sexy or super interesting. And I think we and a bunch of other companies have done as much as we can just using motion data. So I think the next breakthroughs are going to come with much more advanced sensors.
Just a related question to that. I know in the Moves app, it correlates your step activity with your GPS data as recorded by the cell phone. So far as I can remember, none of your products correlate with GPS data. Is that a conscious design decision, or is that something that?
Well, I think you have to figure, what are the trade-offs in that experience? So you trade off battery life for knowing and correlating location with your movement data. But with the Moves app, I haven't really seen how that location data today is useful to me. Maybe it's a failure in imagination on all of our parts or their part, or maybe it's just not useful at all. Who knows? But again, my general comment is we're at the early stages, and hopefully with more advanced sensors, there'll be some more usefulness to the data that's collected.
Over here.
What percentage of your users are still using the product after 6 months or a year? So give us a sense for stickiness.
Better than a gym membership, is all I can say.
Which is what?
I don't know, a few weeks, a month. So better than a month.
But I guess just to get a sense for this category, is this going to be the next pet rock, or is this a lasting category? And I guess what evidence do you have that it's going to stay?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what your definition of a lasting category is. Again, we started the company in 2007, been selling our products for 4 years. So I guess in tech time, 4 years is pretty long. I can easily see this category experiencing incredibly fast and sustained innovation for at least another 5 years.
Over here.
As you grew the company over time, were there any roles and responsibilities within the organization that you wish you had acted on quicker and may have slowed growth in this new market?
Obviously, if Eric and I were super experienced hardware executives like Tony Fadell, I'm sure we could have gotten to market a heck of a lot quicker. I'd have to say it's really difficult to build a great supply chain and operations team. And I think that's one thing that kind of gets missed or ignored when people talk about, let's say, awesome Kickstarter projects where, you have a few 100,000 orders. well, how are you going to deliver on it? It's not going to be your engineers, it's your supply chain and ops people. So overinvestment in that area is always pretty good.
When did you hire your first person with big box and retail experience?
Probably 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty deep in the game.
2 years in.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, awesome. If you had a 90-second phone call with your past self, what would you advise yourself? Like 5 years ago. This is about like how to start your own company, founding Wearables, right?
So I would have said, I know who exactly the key investors who'd invest in your company, so I could cut out 4 or 5 months of fundraising and get that time of my life back.
Strategic in finding investors
and
how is that bite-sized, or how can you be more strategic in finding investors that are appropriate for your company?
I think it's a lot of it is what actually I haven't given that question much thought, but Brad Feld's on our board, and he's had a very long-term interest in self-tracking and wearables for quite a while, if you read his blog. So in hindsight, I should have gone to Brad first instead of last. He happened to be the last investor I talked to, and he put money in, so that could have saved like 4 months of,
Part of the process.
yeah.
How quickly do you know in a pitch meeting that this thing has legs and this investment might, or this partnership with an investor might work out?
I stopped asking that question a long time ago. I joke with Eric. We've had meetings where we think things have gone great, ends up going nowhere. Meetings where we're like, that was terrible, and it's they've come back and invested. So I honestly have no idea how to judge the aftermath of a pitch.
Any other questions?
That's one question.
Yeah.
About your background personally has driven you to be interested in founding this?
In what?
In founding this?
Just innate curiosity to build things. Again, I knew nothing about hardware. I'd last taken a hardware class. I took a digital circuit design class in college. I maybe got a B in that class. But Eric and I always have a strong desire to learn new things. And when we started the company, we asked ourselves, is this something that we could do for an incredibly long time? And even 6.5 years into it, I'm incredibly passionate about the business, still heavily involved in the engineering of the hardware products, and it's really fun to build physical things. So.
How do you convert all this knowledge and all this data into applied knowledge?
Just going out and doing it. I don't know. Honestly.
I was talking about within the app. So like with Fitbit, I've tried it for a bit, and I'm like, oh good, okay. So like I'm matching these goals, great, good. And there's momentum, and then that's great. And then I'll break it in a couple days. I'm like, okay, well, it's not seamless enough in my life. And like with moves, because it's already on my phone, I recognize that there's a sacrifice in battery life. But because it's seamless, it's so much more actionable and easily funneled. But still, I want to be able to take this data and be like, oh, there's one bite-sized step that I can take tomorrow that's very easy for me to implement, and there'd be no excuse not to do it, other than like, oh, well, I missed yesterday, so I don't really feel like today I don't really care about actually meeting the same goal anymore.
I'll try to answer your question. Honestly, I think everyone does a really poor job of trying to provide insight into your data. So I think that's really the next step for all of us to do better is giving actionable insight.
Okay, one last question.
Cracked that nut.
Tomorrow is the first day that you can enroll in the Obamacare exchanges, and we're in for some big changes in healthcare in this country. Does the Affordable Care Act affect your business one way or the other?
It probably does. We haven't actually thought too much about how we fit into that strategically, other than the fact that a large portion of our business is around corporate wellness. So I think there's a lot of opportunity amongst health insurers and companies to work harder together with devices and data to try to lower healthcare costs for everybody.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.